Hi, Gil.
Hey,
Good
Noam,
evening.
Erev Tov,
How are
Mashimcha.
you?
Baruch Hashem. Baruch
Okay,
Hashem.
today we're going to learn Mishnah
Three
Dalet,
Mishnayot
right?
tonight. Yeah,
Okay,
Mishnah Dalet,
go
and
ahead.
I'll go for it. We'll just go straight into. We're gonna. All right. So the first one, shor shel pikeach shenagach shor shel cheresh shote v'katan chayav. Okay, somebody who is mentally sound and his ox scores the ox of somebody who is deaf mute or somebody who's mentally incapacitated or a minor, he is obligated. Okay, that makes perfect sense. We know that your shore attacks another shore, generally speaking, you are liable. But then we continue. Vishel chereshotev katan. However, if it's the deaf mute or the mentally incapacitated or the minor whose ox shenagach shor shel pikeach that gores the ox of somebody who is mentally sound, then patur. So before I go on, okay, we can understand this. I think that they have no. If somebody has no capacity, like legal liability, kind of like a minor is not responsible for things. You have to have majority before you have legal responsibility. So we can understand that. But the chidush here, I think, is not even that it's patur. I mean, yes, it is patur, but it's that like you might think. Well, actually, let's go on. Sorry,
I,
I think
I,
I'm
I
for
just
shor
want to
shel
ask.
cheresh shoteh v'kat.
I just want to ask. Uh, isn't somebody is in charge on the minor or on the deaf mute?
Right, right. So that's what we're going to discuss. Basically, the whole issue is apotropos. That's why I hesitated. We should really get into apotropos, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
That's the key question. So, okay.
Shor shel cheresh.
Okay. Shor shel cheresh shotev v'katan shenagach. Edin ma'amidin lehen apotropos. U'me'idin lehen bifnei apotropos. So, if we have the deaf mute or the mentally incompetent or the uh, or of a minor, and then the Beit Din appoints for them an
Guardian.
apotropos, made, and then the Meidin lehen bifnei apotropos. So then we bring witnesses. So now, if you're the PKF, you're somebody of sound of mind, and your ox was gored, you can go up. You can go to court because an apotropos is appointed. But we're going to discuss that. That's an interesting question. Maybe he doesn't have apotropos. So after a certain, there are different shitot on this actually. From I was looking, but but in some cases, the Beit Din, if if it's Tom, they won't necessarily appoint the apotropos. But you know that we've learned this many times. If the ox scores 3 times, now it's muad, and then the Beit Din will appoint apotropos, guardian, and then we have a bunch of issues, and there are different shitot here. So let me finish this one, and then we'll discuss it.
Of course.
Right? So the deaf mute now has
Become here.
yeah, recovers his hearing.
Nishtapa.
Nishtapa. So the one who is mentally incompetent now has regained his mind. The Gdila Katan, and the Katan is now 13 years old in a day. Chazar le Tamuto, Divrei Rabbi Meir. Then what was formerly a Nagchan, a goring ox, becomes Tam again, according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Harehu becheskato. No, it remains as it was, which was a muad. Shor ha'itzdadin eno chayav mita shene'emar ki yigach velo sheyagichuhu. So a stadium ox, meaning they're like a picture of the Roman Colosseum, they're like using it for entertainment, not obligated for death if it gores somebody. Why? Because the quote, the pasuk in Sefer Shemot says, when the ox will gore, it doesn't say velo yagihu, not when they make it gore. So there's no liability there. So we have a lot of issues. So I think we'll discuss this whole issue of apotropos. There are different shitot. The one of them that the Rambam holds is that they hold the apotropos has to pay damages, and then when the minors become majority, then they could settle between each other, and the owners of the ox will have to pay or when they become sound. It's a little bit of an unusual, maybe it's not unusual, but it's let's put it this way: it doesn't exactly provide an incentive to be apotropos. if you're the guardian, you have liability according to this view. However, under the Shita of the Ravad, it's not that way. You take from the best of the neches, of the property of the minor, and that's how you settle it. So the apotropos is just serving an administrative function. So let's take a little look quickly before we move on to the next Mishnah and see what Harav Ovadia Mibartanura says, because in his usual way he explains these things quite nicely, quite clearly. So we're looking at Dalet.
Dalet, here, I find it. Yeah, here. בשל חרש, שוטה וקטן שנגח.
Thank you. Okay. So שור של פיקח פטור, שאין מעמידין אפוטרופוס, לתת לגבות מגופו, דמטלטלהו, ואמרינן בפרק קמא, שהוא כסף מלמד שאין נזקקים, here's the issue, אלא לנכסים שיש להן אחריות, ואוקיימה ביתמי. Okay. So this is a little, we need to get into this a little bit. So basically, sorry. So we're, so when it's the cheresh, or the shoter, or the katan, who has no legal liability, so he's patur, because we don't appoint the guardian to collect from the body of the animals. We would if with somebody who was not in those categories. Dimitaltelehu, because we've discussed this, I think, with the first or second chapter of Bava Kamma, but mitaltelin, this is something that's it's not like proper landed property, it's movable property. And the klal is that when it comes to he cites it here in the Bava Kamma, that's in Bava Kamma.
It's the first chapter. The Perek Rishon.
Exact first chapter. Thank you. First chapter of the first tractate of Nezikin. So it says Shaveh Kesef. Now, Shaveh Kesef, it's like money. It's like a monetary equivalent. Metaltin are exchangeable for money very readily. It's not like property. Melamed she'en beitin nizkakim ele lenechasim sheyesh lehen acharayut. So the beitin isn't required to appoint a patropos in a case like this when there's no acharayut.
Responsible. Responsible.
Acharayut, right.
They're not in charge on.
Exactly. So the klal has to do with being the principle is one of yetumim. Mitaltele de yatme, I think is what we call it. So basically, if it were me, and I'm not an orphan, yatme means orphans, they would take it. But because we're dealing with a category, basically we're saying here, what Rav Ovadia ben Bartanura is saying, is that these categories of cheresh, shoteh, and katan are in the same category as yetomim. They have a special deem. We don't, when it comes to them, we don't take their metaltalin. But we see in the case once they become older or mentally sound, or they leave that status, then we have more what we could do. And then there are different opinions that we saw, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi I think Shimon. So we continue, and he says, "Mamidim lahen." If they're presumed already to be gorers, mamidim lahem apotropos, that's when we appoint an apotropos. Like I said, the first 3 times when it's still tam, we don't worry about it. Once it becomes mu'ad, we do. And this is velo leshalem chatzi nezik ele leshovia mu'ad. So only when it's mu'ad is there a payment. When it's still tam, that's the chidush. That's what I was starting to say earlier. If it's tam, he pays nothing. Whereas if for me who's ox gored and it's tam, I pay chatzi nezik. So that's a little bit of a difference, and that's why we have a separate Mishna to teach this. I don't think we need to do the rest. I think that's all straightforward, and we could probably move on to the next Mishnah, but that's really the chidush here. There are different category, different legal liability, and they don't even have to pay chatzi nezik for tam. And we have the involvement of a guardian. Those are the key issues here.
Okay.
I might also add that there's a difference between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon. That the issue there has to do with reshut. So according to Rabbi Meir, it changes to reshut. So now it goes back from being mu'ad to tam, whereas according to Rabbi Shimon, and that's the halacha as with him, that's not the case. If it's mu'ad, it stays mu'ad. So he's 12 years old and he owns it, and it does damage and is mu'ad. He turns 13. According to Rabbi Meir, it's tam again. According to Rabbi Shimon and the halacha is like him, no, it was mu'ad before, it's mu'ad afterwards. And that's pretty much the issues here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Take a look at hey.
Hey. Yeah, I know. Here.
Yeah. Shor shenagachet adam v'met muad. A bullet kills a person and it dies, and the person dies. Is muad muad. This is interesting halacha here. Mesham kofer. So let me explain that. So kofer is an atonement payment. So what we're saying here is you might think, because we learned like from the pasuk in the Torah, you probably think, and we discussed this before, that the ox and its owner are both chayav mita. However, we don't actually kill the owner of the ox. He's chayav mita bidei shemayim, at the hands of heaven. So he'll get his comeuppance for not being responsible. But in the meantime, we don't kill him. He just pays an kofer, atonement payment. The tam, patur min ha kofer. If it was a tam that did the killing, so you pay the regular damages, but you don't pay kofer because it wasn't expected. It was completely out of the normal range of behavior. V'zeh v'zeh chayavim mita. That means whether the ox was tam or the ox was muad, in either case, it dies. The ox does die. The chen beven, the chen bevat. The same law applies if the ox killed a boy or a girl. This needed to be said because you might think that there's no liability because it wasn't a fully grown person. There is a halachic distinction between a minor and a major, but no, the Mishnah is telling us nope, it doesn't matter. We still hold. There's still liability. It doesn't matter. It's like you can't. In many ancient societies, a child was considered of no importance, but the Mishnah is telling us the child is considered to be important indeed. Nagach evedo ama. נותן 30 סלעים, בין שהוא יפה מנה ובין שאינו יפה אלא דינר אחד. Okay, so a gourd, a slave or a maidservant, a male or a female slave, we pay 30 sla'im. That's a sela is basically like a shekel from the Torah, except in the times of the Mishnah, they increased its weight by 20%, but it was still worth.
It said that they should die after he gored them. The slave.
What's that now?
It said that that the gored male or female are dying because of this gore.
So here's the thing: we're talking about an Eved Knani, not an Eved Ivri, and it's the property of the person, and therefore there's a according to the law of the Torah, there's a monetary amount for this property. Now,
it's Eved Ivri or Eved Knani?
Eved Knani, but I think
Eved Knani. Okay. I think
Shloshim
is belong to Eved Knani, usually.
Well, okay.
Shloshim shel Eved, it means Eved Knani as far as I remember. Shloshim, it means that if the Eved, the halacha said that if the Eved, the slave, is getting hurt by one of his Ivarim, of his body, ends of the body, like a thumb or a nail or wherever, then he should be set for free. But this,
right. So here's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a non-Jewish slave, and the key difference is that the slave did not litbol, it didn't immerse and take on some level of mitzvot. Had it done so, then we would have a different deen here. So it's kind of like today. I mean, like anybody who wants to can become a Jew, and there are intermediate steps in these times. So a person, like for example, of an Eved who wanted to take on some level of Torah observance, would have the same mitzvot that a female has. And then it wouldn't be shloshim slaim. It would be like killing a person, like killing another Jew. However, in this case, we're talking about the property. Since we
who gets the pay?
The owner.
The owner of the slave.
The owner of the slave.
Okay.
So this is property. We're going to take a look at Bartner in a second, but I'll just clarify this. Whether it's worth 100, so basically if it's worth 100 sla'im, the payment is still 30. If this particular one is worth a dinar, which is 25 sla'im, it still is 30 because there's a fixed payment set by Torah, and it's this arachim. We just pay the the objective amount for every person, not based on this guy happens to be super strong and does a lot of work and is really young, so he's worth 100. That's not how we fix the payment. Let's take a look at Bartanura before we move on to the Mishnah Vav, our final Mishnah, and see how he explains it. It would be hey. So he went too far.
Yeah.
We need hay. That's Vav.
Wait. Hey. Oh, yeah.
There we go. Okay, Muad Mishlam Kofer. So, if it was a Muad, you have to pay an atonement. So it says, Bava Kamma de Nagach Katlinenle, Ashkachinen Muad, Kigon Sharag Shlosha Nochrim. Okay, this is interesting. So, this raises a really, I was wondering the same question, and thankfully Bartanur explains it to me. Like, you might think, wait a minute, we're paying kofar for a muad, but we know that a muad becomes muad only after it gored 3 times. So if it killed somebody, meaning if it's muad, it means it's muad for killing a person. So how is it possible that it already killed a person? Didn't we just learn that if it kills a person, the Zevazeh Nerag. So each of them gets killed. So it should have been killed already. How is it possible that it's existing even? So he answers it, and he says, "What's the case? There are three possibilities." He says, one is it killed three Nochrim, three non-Jews.
Oh,
So it killed a Jew. It would have been killed right away. If it killed a minor, it would have been killed right away. But this kind of goes to the same issue as the non-Jewish slave. These are my words, not Barthanuras. I'm telling you this from the Gemara. It's really, I'm just simply saying, what could the thinking possibly be? I'm saying the thinking might be this. It says, Ovdei Kochavim. So it may be that the deen is that, it's not that we don't value the life of a non-Jew. It's saying, Ovdei Kochavim. A non-Jew, somebody's a star worshiper, somebody didn't figure out what his responsibilities are, that Hashem runs the world, maybe doesn't deserve as much legal protection. I'm just trying to make my interpretations of what it might mean. But we'll continue. It says, Inami, Sherag Shosha Yisraelim Treifa. Or it might have killed three Jews, and it's still alive. Why? Because they're Treifa. Treifa means basically like a limbs, basically it's somebody in such perilous state of health that he's really set to die. He's about to die. And someone like that is Kfar Nechshav Kamet. So, in fact, I think Bartanura says it. Right, the Katil, Katlin, the Treifa lo Katlinenle, the Gavra Katila Katil.
Yeah.
It's like killing somebody who's already killed. He's already killed. So because he's considered like who's died. In the third case, Inami, the Katil ve'arak le'ogma le'achar she'eidu bo. So the third
there's
case
a lake.
is interesting.
Agama, it's like a lake.
It's like it fled to a field, sadeh, and basically it was sitting in the Beit Din, the shore, and it decided nobody's looking and it runs away. Interesting enough, you can't prosecute unless the shore is in front of the Beit Din. Once it's gone, it's free of judgment. You can't pass judgment. It's kind of funny to think about because certainly in America we don't bring an ox into the courtroom, but apparently we did bring the ox into the courtroom in Mishnaic times, and that's the halacha. So that's why these are cases where it might have escaped the death penalty, even though it's already killed before. Okay, and the rest of v'chen beven v'chen bevat tinok v'tinoket. So we already know that it was a minor. Chayav alehen skila v'chofer kegadol. So
What did we say before?
Well, we know that we treat a minor that was killed the same as we would treat somebody of majority age. And it gets it's stoned, and the ox is stoned, and the owner of the ox pays an atonement payment called kofar. Now we'll do vav, which is the easiest.
It means that kids' life matter.
Those are very fraught words today, but yes, I think that we can agree because really my opinion doesn't really matter. Your opinion, and the opinion of our fellow Americans and Israelis don't matter. It's only Hashem's opinion that matters, and that's why we're learning halakha. So here we do the sixth and the third Mishnah of the night, and it's Mishnah Vav, and it's our final one. And this one's pretty interesting and easier. שור שהיה מתחכך בחוטל ונפל על האדם, נתכוון להרוג את הבהמה והרג את האדם. Okay, maybe I'll just translate. The ox is rubbing against a wall and it fell on a person. נתכוון להרוג את הבהמה והרג את האדם. It was thinking to kill another beast, but it killed a person. L'nachri v'raget Israel. It was going to kill a non-Jew, but it killed Israel, a fellow a Jew. L'nfalim v'arag ben kayama. It was going to a Nephil is a stillborn. It was going to kill a stillborn, but it ended up killing a viable baby that could live. Patur. In all those cases, it's patur. Now, the easiest way to explain all of these cases is just to read you what Rav Ovadia Mibartanor says, because he gives a beautiful explanation, just wraps it all up perfectly. So there's no need for me to hem and haw in a particular case. We'll just look at Vav Bartanura.
Here. This is
it's
it.
A little too.
So,
we need to make it
but
smaller
I think,
in order to be.
I think I need to.
Huh?
Here. Wait. I need to change the size. Here, I find it.
I think we need to go down to Vav. That's already kind of. Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, thank you.
Here it is.
Sure. Okay, the ox was rubbing against the wall. Patur min hamita. V'im haya mu'ad, if it was a goring ox, presumed to gore, kagon shaya mu'ad lehitchatech b'katlim.
B'ktalim. Ktalim, it's like walls. Fence, made of walls or walls.
Right. Ulapilam al b'nei adam. v'nitchatech b'kotel le'anato v'yipilu al ha'adam v'amet. Ashor patur min hamita. So I'll stop here before I go on. Basically, the case is interesting. He's saying that it was muad, it was a goring ox, because 3 times previously it killed a person or whatever the case happens to be. In this case, Adam killed a person. But not in this case. In the 4th case, it rubbed against the wall. Bartanur says, Lihanato, for its own enjoyment. And as we may recall from earlier chapter, when it's Hana'ah, we're talking about Shane. We're not talking about Karen.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, it is Karen because it's Muad to Karen, but it's Patur because he wasn't presumed to doing that. He did the 4th time, he did something he wasn't presumed to be doing. We knew he was a risk to kill other people. We didn't know he was a risk that he was just going to massage himself on the wall and try to enjoy himself. So it's a different activity, and that's why Hashor Patur Min Amita, the shore is now exempt from killing. The Baalim Mishalmim et the Kofar, but because it did kill somebody, the owner does make the Kofar payment. Hashor Patur Min Amita, Dichtiv. So here we have a biblical proof why the shore is Patur. Ashor Yisakel, Ashor Yisakel, the Lav Yumat. The ox is stoned, and also its owner is killed. Kimitata ve'alim kach mitata shor. So he's saying that that's just as the owner is put to death, so is the ox put to death in this biblical quote. So now he's saying we have to. So it's always got to be parallel. Ma be'alim in chayvin im hargo et nefesh ad sheyargu bechavana. So just as the owner isn't liable to the death penalty until it killed with intention, so too we need to see that the ox has intention because they're parallel. Based on the biblical quote, they have to be the same. So if the 4th time the ox is rubbing itself just to massage himself and have a good time, he wasn't intending to kill, and it doesn't fit the halacha based on that pasuk. Ve'alim mishamim et kofer. The owner pays the kofer. Diktiv in. So how do we know that the owner has to pay kofer? Because the pasuk says im kofer shaya yachol lichtov kofer yushat alav. So we could have said kofer yushat alav. A kofer payment is set upon him that he has to pay. But no, it says im first. So that's a milah meyuteret. It's an extra word. Whenever there's an extra word, Chazal darshanim, darshim, they make an interpretation on it. It belongs to some other halacha. My im kofer lerabot haoreg shelo bechavana lechiyuv kofer. So the purpose is when you say the word im, it's used there to include one who kills not intentionally, but it obligates him. It obligates the owner for kofar. That's what the extra word is telling us.
Okay. Understood.
Understood. I'm glad you understood, because I can't say that I explained it as masterfully as you would as an experienced teacher. So I look forward to your next shiur.
You're the expert. I understand from you.
Okay, well, kol hakavod, 3 mishnayot.
Okay. Yishar koach. Fine. Thanks, Gil. See you next week. Thanks.
Yes, take care.